Hello, Algebra 1. This is section 9.3, solving problems with two variables. I made up a note sheet for this one, so if you would like to have this note sheet that I'm going to be using in the notes today, it's posted on Sycamore on the citizenship page, the same place where all your directions have been for remote learning, under the Documents tab. And it's just called 9.3 Note Sheet. So if you would like to pause the video, go print out a note sheet so you can follow along. It is there for you on Sycamore. That's totally optional. I'd also like to mention for others who are watching that we are using the Algebra Structure and Method, Book 1 by McDougall-Littell, published in 2004. All of the word problems in today's notes have been taken from that book, so I just wanted to give credit to them, to our source. All right, so today we're going to look at solving some real-world application problems using this substitution method that you've been practicing for the last couple of days. If you're still a little fuzzy on the substitution method, hopefully seeing me work these out today will clear up any questions that you still have. So let's look at the first one. The sum of two numbers is 5. The larger number exceeds twice the smaller number by 14. Find the numbers. So in the past, we might have approached this problem by choosing a variable and then trying to write two different things in terms of that one variable. Now that we've learned how to solve problems with two variables, that kind of opens things up for us a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two different letters. We're going to have a letter that represents the larger number, and we're going to have a letter that represents the smaller number. You may choose whatever numbers you like. I know my Algebra 1 students like to choose the most random off-the-wall numbers that have nothing to do with the problem. So y'all knock yourselves out. Pick whatever you want. I'm going to pick the letter N for my larger number. N equal the larger number. And I'm going to let K equal my smaller number. All right, remember, when you're solving a word problem, step 1 is to define your variables. This is for yourself so that you don't get confused as you work through the problem, but it's also for me when I'm grading your work. I cannot see inside your head, so I need you to tell me what things are representing in your problem so I can try to follow your thought process through the problem. So start with step 1, define your variables. Now, we're going to go back through and read it again, and we're going to see what kind of information we could get this time. The sum of two numbers is 5. Okay, well, I have two numbers, N and K. Their sum is 5. I can write an equation with that. N plus K equals 5. So there's my first equation. The larger number exceeds twice the smaller number by 14. So the larger number, that's N, it's going to exceed twice the smaller number. So twice the smaller number by 14. So twice the smaller number plus 14 should give you the larger number. So that gives me the equation N equals 2K plus 14. All right, so now I've got these two equations. I'm going to solve the equations. So this one is set up for me nicely because this equation is already in N equals form. With the substitution method, I'm going to take this whole thing, 2K plus 14, and substitute it into the other equation in place of the N. Because it equals N, it can stand in the place of N. So in place of the N, I'm going to have 2K plus 14, and then plus K equals 5. So I substituted 2k plus 14 in place of the n in the other equation. Now I'm going to collect my like terms. 2k plus 1k gives me 3k plus 14 equals 5. Subtract 14 from both sides. 3k equals negative 9. Divide by 3. K equals negative 3. So our smaller number is negative 3. It says find the numbers, so it wants me to give both. So once I know one of the numbers, I can go back. N equals 2 times k plus 14. So now that I know that k equals negative 3, I'm going to substitute that in place of the k. So I have n equals negative 6 plus 14, and n equals 8. So the numbers are 8 and negative 3. 8 and negative 3. All right, next one. A pet shop sold 23 puppies and kittens in 1 week. They sold 9 more puppies than kittens. How many of each did they sell? All right, so for me, this is an obvious. P is the number of puppies. K is the number of kittens. But make sure that you define your variables. That means on your paper, write out what letter you're using and what you're using it to represent. All right, a pet shop sold 23 puppies and kittens in 1 week. So I know that the number of puppies plus the number of kittens equals 23. They sold 9 more puppies than kittens. So the number of kittens plus 9 equals the number of puppies. 9 more puppies than kittens. Okay, so this is my system. I'm going to solve using substitution. Again, this equation is already in P equals form. So this is going to be easy to substitute. In place of the P, I'm going to put this whole thing K plus 9. So K plus 9 plus K equals 23. I substituted in place of the P so that everything is in terms of K. K plus K gives me 2K. 2K plus 9 equals 23. Then I'm going to subtract 9 from each side. 2K equals 14. Divided by 2. K equals 7. All right, go back and let's remind ourselves what they asked. How many of each did they sell? Well, we know they have 7 kittens, so let's go back up here. The number of puppies is the number of kittens plus 9, so the number of puppies is 16. So they sold 16 puppies, and they sold 7 kittens. It took me, less than 30 seconds to write out my answer. Take the time to write a final answer with labels. 16 puppies, 7 kittens. All right, let's move on to the next page. A bank teller has 112 $5 bills and $10 bills for a total of $720. How many of each does the teller have? All right, so we've got 2 different types of bills, and then each of the bills has a different kind of value. So let's let A equal the $5 bill, the number of $5 bills. And I'm going to let B equal the number of $10 bills. All right, a bank teller has 112 $5 bills and $10 bills. So 112 bills altogether. So the number of $5 bills plus the number of $10 bills equals 112 bills. For a total of $720. So now we're talking a value. So now I need to give a value to each of these. $5 bills are worth $5. So $5 for every bill plus $10 for every $10 bill has to equal $720 total. So this first equation talks about how many of each kind you have. The second equation talks about the value for each kind to give you a total value. All right, so that's my system. Now on this one, I don't have one of them already solved for A or already solved for B, so I'm going to have to do that. So this one looks easier to work with, so I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to solve for A. So I'm just going to subtract B from both sides. So I have 112 minus B. Once I know what A equals, I'm going to substitute this in place of the A in the other equation. So 5, in place of the A, I have 112 minus B plus 10B equals 720. Once you've done your substitution step, you should only be working in one letter. If you're still working in 2 letters here, you did not substitute correctly. So then we want to distribute. So 5 times 112 gives me 560 minus 5B plus 10B equals 720. Then I'm going to collect my like terms. Negative 5B plus 10B. So I have 560 plus 5B equals 720. Subtract 560 from both sides. 5B equals 160. I'm just going to rewrite that up here. Divide both sides by 5, and B equals 32. All right, how many of each does the teller have? Well, B is the number of $10 bills, so I have 32 $10 bills. I need to figure out my $5 bills. So over here, A equals 112 minus 32. So A equals 80. So I have 32 $10 bills, and I have 80 $5 bills. Now there's a couple ways you can check this one. First of all, 32 plus 80 should equal 112 bills. And then 32 times 10 gives you 320. And then 80 times 5 gives you 400. So 400 plus 320 should equal 720 because that's how much money you had in the beginning. So you can check your answer to make sure it lines up with the information that they gave you. All right. Jeanette has 20 nickels and dimes worth $1.75. How many of each coin does she have? So this is going to be similar to number 3. So we have nickels. So I'm going to use N equals the number of nickels. And we have dimes. I'm going to use D equals the number of dimes. So Jeanette has 20 nickels and dimes. So altogether, nickels and dimes, she has 20. It's worth $1.75. So this is where you have to use your thinking cap. Nickels are worth 5 cents each. So 0.05 for each nickel, plus dimes are worth 10 cents each. 0.10 dimes equals $1.75 total. All right, a couple of things to make this easier. Neither of these are solved for N equals or for D equals. So I'm going to do this one, and I'm just going to solve for N. So I'm going to do N equals, if I just subtract D from both sides, I'm going to have 20 minus D. And then one other thing that will make this easier with all these decimals, you can clear out the decimals if you multiply everything by 100. That allows you to move all the decimal places over 2, and that will clear out all your decimals. So if we move this over 2, we have 5N. We move this one over 2, we have 10D. Don't forget to move this one also, 175. That's not a required step, but we tend to do better with integers than we do with decimals when we're doing calculations. So I would recommend that you take a second to do that step. It's going to make your work easier for you. All right, so now we want to do our substitution. We have this one in N equals form, so I'm going to replace that. I'm going to substitute it in place of the N. So I have 5, and then instead of N, I'm going to use 20 minus D plus 10D equals 175. Again, once you've done the substitution step, you should be working all in one variable. So I'm only working with D's right now. All right, then I'm going to distribute. 5 times 20 gives me 100 minus 5D plus 10D equals 175. I'm going to collect my like terms. Negative 5D plus 10D gives me positive 5D. Subtract 100 from both sides. 5D equals 75. I'm just going to rewrite that right here. Divide both sides by 5, and D equals 15. All right, how many of each coin does she have? D equals 15. The number of dimes is 15. I need to figure out the number of nickels. That's 20 minus D. So 20 minus 15 gives me 5. So I have 15 dimes and 5 nickels. Just takes a few seconds to write that out as a conclusion. Again, you can check it. 15 plus 5 should give you 20 coins. And then 15 times 10 cents each plus 5 times 5 cents each should give you $1.75. All right, last one. This one's a little more complex, so we're going to use a little different strategy for this one. Kathleen invested $5,000, some at 6% interest and the rest at 5% interest. Her annual income, so the amount of interest that she's getting paid from the investments, is $280. How much is invested at 5%? So for this one, I feel like the table approach is going to help us stay organized. We talked about this in a previous chapter, but it's been a little while. So the principal, the amount that you start with, times the rate that it's being invested at, gives you how much interest you're going to gain. Okay, so we know that Kathleen invested $5,000. So total, she invested $5,000. Now, some of it she put at 6%, some of it she put at 5%. We don't know how much she put at either value. So I'm just going to call this one X and call this one Y. You can use whatever letter you want, but X plus Y has to add up to $5,000. All right, the rate is 6%. Remember, if we want to use percentages to calculate something, we have to turn them into decimal form by moving it back 2 places. So this becomes 0.06. This becomes 0.05, and nothing's really happening in this box. Okay, if we go across, principal times rate equals interest. If we multiply across this row, 0.06x. If we multiply across this row, 0.05y. And then the total amount of interest is given in the problem. Her annual income from the investments is $280. All right. So we need to write some equations. We know, first of all, this column tells us something. X dollars plus Y dollars has to equal $5,000 total. So the amount invested here plus the amount invested here has to add up to the total investment. So that's your first equation. This final column gives your second equation. 0.06x plus 0.05y has to equal 280. All right, so for what we need to do, let's solve this for one of these variables. I'm going to solve for x, so I'm just going to subtract y from both sides, so x equals 5,000 minus y. And as I mentioned in the previous problem, it's easier to work with if you clear out the decimals by multiplying everything by 100. So this is going to make this 6x plus 5y, but don't forget to multiply by 100 over here, so that makes that 28,000. All right, then I'm going to substitute. So I'm going to take this value of x and plug it in place of the x. So 6 times 5,000 minus y plus 5y equals 28,000. One more time, when you get to this step, you should be working all in one variable. You should not have a mix of x's and y's when you get to this step. All right, I'm going to distribute. So 6 times 5,000 gives me 30,000 minus 6y plus 5y equals 28,000. If you collect your like terms, negative 6y plus 5y is negative y. And then if you subtract 30,000 from both sides, you have you have negative y equals negative 2,000. If you divide both sides by negative 1, then positive y equals positive 2,000. All right, let's go back. How much is invested at 5%? That's this row. 5% is my y value. That's what we happen to solve for first. So lucky us, we're done. She invested $2,000 at 5%. Now, let's say that we had solved for x first. That would be fine. You would take your answer for x, plug it back in to solve, and get your answer for y. On this particular problem, they were only interested in one of the answers, the 5%. But if you wanted to, you know that 5,000 minus 2,000 should give you 3,000. So you could also say that she's invested $3,000 at 6%. So you actually get two answers here. All right, hopefully that helps clear up any remaining questions you had about solving with substitution. All of these problems were done using the substitution method. We just did the extra step of applying it to a word problem. The word problems that you've been assigned are very similar to these problems. Make sure that you note on the assignment page that you're actually solving each of these. So you're not, if the book might say to set up the system, but my directions on the assignment sheet say to solve the system. So I want you to set it up and solve it. If you have any questions about anything, please email me. My office hours are Monday through Thursday from 10 to 11. So you will always get a response from me right away within that window. I also am checking my email at other times throughout the day. So you're welcome to send me an email anytime. I will always respond the next time I log into my email. So I might not see it until my next office hours, so you know you'll get an answer then. But if I happen to be on later that evening and I see your question, I'll send you an answer when I see it. So feel free to send questions. I hope these videos are helpful. We've got one more video coming out this week, and that will get us through till Easter break. I hope you guys are doing well. I miss seeing your faces in class. Email me if you have any questions.